Facebook. They can make their comments. We'll try to read their messages tonight. And hopefully, I know there'll be many comments that are very favorable to Mrs. Leevey. So I'm saying that, and all those of you online with us tonight in Radio Land and on our online platforms on Facebook and YouTube, it is Monday, 26 September 2022. And we want to shout out to your brothers and sisters as well, Mrs. Leevey, Anita, Eileen, Marilyn, Isaiah, Alistair, and June. And we, of course, acknowledge your brother Annie and Ducree, who is now deceased. Your grandchildren, Katie and Maria and Kelowna and Jaden. Your cousins, Hayden, Eugene, and Eileen. Your deceased uncle, Bernard Eugene, whom I knew very, very well indeed, quite a gentleman. Your aunt, Malika, and the rest of your family, friends, and other loved ones, simply too numerous to mention here tonight. Time really does not permit. But yes, a special good evening to all of you, all our Dominicans worldwide and the Q family listeners, or distinguished QDos to our Heroes Committee members who are all with us tonight, not necessarily on the platform, but they're with us and they're there from various parts of the United States, of Canada, and Dominica. We are witnessing, of course, yet another global event tonight, because we have already received messages from Mrs. Leevey's fans, her colleagues, her affiliates, Q family listeners, and your beneficiaries, people whom you certainly have made some changes in their lives, have impacted them in a positive way. And many of those people are in Dominica and abroad as well. Everyone in the Q family is tuned in to Q95 right now on YouTube and Facebook and the other platforms. And we anticipate a big evening with Q95 honoring a highly distinguished and very gentle lady on the big station. I must tell you that I am absolutely delighted, and indeed I feel honored and privileged to see a very special good evening and to embrace the distinguished members of our Q95 Heroes Committee. Ms. Janice Williams Russell, who's in Toronto, retired Command Sergeant Major CSM Ralph Alcindor in Atlanta, Georgia. Ms. Corinne Francis, who's normally in San Francisco, but she travels the globe. So I'm not even sure where she is, but she's with us tonight on the platform. You will hear from her. And Dr. Simone Matthews in Atlanta, Georgia. Former UN Ambassador Crispin Gregoire in New York. Dr. Dion George, also in Atlanta, Georgia. Mr. Leroy Waddix Charles, he's in Dominica. And of course, Pastor Randy Rodney, who's in Dominica, who unavoidably could not be with us here tonight, regretfully. But three of our Heroes Committee members are with us tonight on our platform. And they are Dr. Simone Matthew, Mrs. Janice Williams Russell, and Ms. Corinne Francis. But all of the other cherished members are locked into the stream, and they are with you at this time, Mrs. Leevey. To our cherished listeners, be sure to join our live stream and share the live on Facebook and YouTube at Q95 Radio, or YSQFM, and on several other streaming platforms. My fellow Dominicans, our distinguished and extended Q family listeners, friends of Dominica at home and abroad, as chairman of the Q95 QDos or Heroes Committee, and on behalf of our entire committee, we feel honored to present Mrs. Dorothy Leevey to Dominica, to the region, and to the world as our 12th national hero. Here are a few things that you may not have known about Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. Mrs. Dorothy Theodora Thomas Leevey is indeed a very humble lady. She was born in Dominica on December 10, 1941. Her father, Mr. Nicholson Alexander Nathaniel Thomas, was born in Maho, Dominica. Her mom, Mrs. Maria Ann Eugene, was born and lived in Pottersville in Dominica. Mrs. Leevey and her very dear distinguished husband, Alfred, was born in Montserrat, have been married since July 1969. I hope I got that correctly, and are still going strong for some 50 plus years. Mrs. Leevey, we salute you. We salute your husband, Alfred, your children, and your cherished grandchildren, and a few other things that you may not know about our dear Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. Mrs. Leevey got her primary education at Mr. Zephaniah Joseph School where her mom also taught, and then on to the St. Mary's Primary School in Dominica. She sat what was then called the scholarship exams in 1953. She topped the common entrance list. She entered the convent high school in 1954, where she got a secondary education in Dominica. She sat what was called the senior Cambridge exam in November of 1958, and only she and one other person, Viela Zamo Bruni, passed that exam with such sufficient distinction to obtain a first division certificate. And in January 1959, she entered the sixth form at the convent high school. She then passed the higher school certificate exam in November 1960, and in March 1961, she was awarded the Island Scholarship. But she gave up that scholarship because by that time she was already attending the Grail International Movement to deepen her Christian faith. So thereafter, she went on to the University of Toronto in Canada, where she obtained a bachelor's degree with a major in English language and literature and a minor in French and psychology. Thereafter, she returned to Dominica in August of 1966 and began teaching English and literature at the convent high school. She also taught French, literature, and the general paper to the merged sixth form students of all of the four high schools that existed at that time. Here are a couple of things a couple of favorites, a few favorite quotes that Mrs. Leevey likes, and from some literary works that she reflects on from time to time. Here's the first one, Thomas Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard, and the stanza. Here it is, the boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, all that beauty, all that wealth you gave, await alike the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. This is one of them, one of her favorite quotes. And here's another one from H.W. Longfellow's poems. She likes this quote. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal, but to dust thou art, and to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Isn't that beautiful? Now, as if all of that is not already enough, let me just give you a little bit more about Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. So in addition to her valuable transformational lifelong works and accomplishments, Mrs. Dorothy Leevey always brings out the best in others to work hard, to be true to themselves and to their profession, to reach out to excellence and be dedicated to being the very best that they can be in whatever they do. So kudos indeed to Mrs. Dorothy Theodora Thomas Leevey and her family. She's a true Dominican hero for instilling a positive mental attitude that elevated the content of the social, educational, and literary dialogue in so many matters for over 50 years, for being a great Dominican who demonstrates that each one of us, ordinary people, can do extraordinary things in whatever we set our minds to do. So we invite you, our cherished Q95 listeners in every nook and cranny at home, in the region and globally, please join us in appreciating, embracing, recognizing, celebrating, awarding, and extending QDos to our 12th Dominican national hero, Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. And you can rest assured, Mrs. Leevey, that you will remain highly respected, admired, and cherished by all Dominicans abroad and by all of us at home in our beautiful little nature island of the Caribbean. So for your exemplary performance in transcending self-interest, for going well over and beyond the call of duty, often without remuneration, and for going above and beyond normal demands and expectations of your profession, for commanding respect in society, for being a true pioneer in your work and occupation, for your unique, indefatigable work ethic, for your innovation, your achievements, and tenacity in the face of all the challenges that you have surely encountered and endured in your lifetime, for your impactful leadership par excellence, for your highly productive community involvement, collaborations, and partnerships, for your dedicated commitment to people's education, well being, and social development. For these and many, many more reasons, Q95's Kudos to Our Heroes Committee recognizes, we appreciate, we embrace, and award you, Mrs. Leevey, Mrs. Dorothy Theodora Thomas Leevey, as a champion, and we bestow upon you the very well deserved and indeed very well earned esteemed title of a true Dominican national hero. So we all say kudos to our 12th Dominican hero, Mrs. Dorothy Theodora Thomas Leevey, your distinguished husband Alfred, your children and grandchildren who have stood steadfastly beside you through thick and thin. And it is indeed our honor and delight, and that of every member of the Kudos to Our Heroes Committee, all of us Dominicans at home and abroad, and all of us in the Q family, to say to everyone, everywhere, we know and we love and we respect Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. And may God bless you and your dear husband Alfred, your wonderful children and grandchildren, your brothers and sisters. And may God also bless all of the other true Dominican national heroes whose works positively impact the lives of Dominicans and others everywhere, every day. So, on behalf of our Kudos to Our Heroes Committee, and on behalf of every Dominican at home and abroad, we say thank you, Mrs. Leevey. We wish you Godspeed. We look forward to having you to inspire us for many more years to come. Thank you. And may the good Lord bless your entire family very richly. So, with this, I wanted to just go back to the console is showing. We have this nice little song of King Dice. He can give us a little bit of that. And then I'm going to go over to our committee members who are on the panel with us to say a few words to you, Mrs. Leevey, before we start airing some of the wonderful tributes that have been made to you by so many people. I'm not even sure that we'll be able to run all of them tonight. You have so many. And I expected that. I was not surprised at all. I expect you to get many, and you got many. As a matter of fact, many more were coming, but we had to take a pause because we really did not have the time. So, Sherwin, let me just go to you. Give me a little bit of that Flowers music by Dice, and if you have that, and then we can go over to Corinne right after that. All right, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sherwin. Corinne, I'm going over to you first because I hope you are one of Mrs. Levy's favorite students. I certainly hope you handle yourself well in the class and you do your homework on time and so on. So, as a member of our Kudos to Heroes Committee, let me go over to you to say a few words, and I'm sure you'd like to Mrs. Dorothy Leevey.
Hello to all the Q95 listeners at home and abroad. Thank you for listening to our program today. I wanted to be a part of this.
Oh, Corinne had to get up to do something so shortly. So we will just give her a moment, let her take a pause. And maybe we'll go to you, Janice, while Corinne is, because I suspect she's having a little difficulty with her technology there. Janice, let's go. You can unmute your mic. Maybe you want to say a few words to Mrs. Dorothy Leevey.
Mr. G, that is unfair. You should have gone to Dr. Simone. I was a DGS girl.
Oh, you're
I was a DGS girl, but yeah,
that's all right.
I mean,
that's perfectly okay.
That's okay.
I was hoping to say congratulations to Mrs. Leevey on being a great Dominican hero. I think this award tonight is well deserved. I've always heard about Mrs. Leevey from all my friends from the convent high school, and I know what a great principal she was. So I just want to add my voice and say congratulations. I do love you, even if I was not a convent high school girl, but I've always heard about Mrs. Leevey and what a wonderful, wonderful human being that she is. So again, congratulations, and we love you, and an award well deserved.
Yes, but Janice, don't forget that I too am a DGS guy, you know.
I know
So
that.
and we're all here to really support and to appreciate Mrs. Levy. So not only the convent high school appreciated and loved her, but also the grammar school and the St. Mary's
That's
Academy.
right.
All of us love Mrs. Levy. So let me go over now to Dr. Simone Matthew to say a few words.
Yes, good evening, Mr. G, Mrs. Levy, affectionately known by us who attended Convent High School as Ma Levy. I think that is a name we will certainly never forget. And I'm very happy to see that as we are welcoming everyone to come on in, the president of the CHS alumni, Miss Francine Harris, has just posted on Facebook. So hopefully we'll get a chance to come back and read the messages posted on Facebook. But as a former convent high school girl, as well as a member of the Kudos to Our Heroes Committee, it is a true honor to be here with you to celebrate Mrs. Leevey for her decades of service, not only to CHS, but to Dominica by extension. So we want to say good night and good evening to all our listeners on Q95 FM, as well as those who are joining us on YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to share the live as you come on in. And don't forget to post your messages and call in as well to be a part of the celebration. And just in case I don't have an opportunity to make a contribution later, because I know we are overwhelmed with the amount of people who wanted to make a contribution this evening, I just wanted to say that, you know, from attending CHS, what particularly stood out for me is that Mrs. Leevey created a culture, right? So I think we can all agree that the principal of a school generally sets the tone, sets the culture of the school. And for me, it was a culture of excellence. So, you know, from the minute you walked through those gates, you felt the need to pull up your socks and fix your tie, both literally and figuratively, because you know that you were in a place of excellence. You knew that you were in a place of high standards where the best was going to be expected of you every day. So there were no excuses, none of, you know, I don't feel well today, I'm not in the mood today. Today was the day, and every day was the day to be an excellent student. And the other thing in particular that stands out from me from my experiences at the convent high school, CHS, was the fact that we always felt that our gender did not hinder our capabilities. So here we were being led by a staunch woman, a firm woman, a woman of conviction and dignity and respect. And we were taught that we to excel in our own way. So not was it good enough to just have an A in a subject, but we always vied to have the highest grade, grade A in every subject. So what that did for us is that it built our self-confidence, so that by the time we got to Sifokal, which by the age of 17, 18, 19, for many of us, it was the first time we had encountered males in the classroom. There was no competition because it had been instilled in us that our capabilities, whether we were girls or not, was going to take us far. So, Mrs. Leevey, I am honored to be here. I want to take this opportunity to personally thank you and to also thank you on behalf of the thousands of girls who went through the CHS during your time as principal.
Well, I have to tell you, thanks a lot for that, Dr. Simone. I have to tell you, Mrs. Levy, that because we're using the StreamYard platform and it can only accommodate 10 spaces maximum. So we could only accommodate 3 of our committee members here tonight. Normally, we have all of our committee members, but we could only, and Dr. Simone said, listen, whatever happens, I want to be sure to be on that platform there tonight because I have a few things I want to say about Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. So thank you a lot for that, Dr. Simone. And, you know, before I let anybody else on the panel say anything, I want to go over the showing again because I want him to run one or two, well, not one or two, because we have so many that I'm going to ask him to do five, to run five of the tributes, the voice note tributes that were sent to us. But Ms. Leevey, I'll probably ask him to do one from Miss Alex Sorrento, and one from Anthony Lockett, one from Dave Shillingford, one from Dr. Merlin Charles, that's Dr. Dave Shillingford, Dr. Merlin Charles, who I think is a professor at the University of Toronto, and of course, Dr. Susan Charles. So Sherwin, I'm giving you, let you run five of those for me, because I think we need to hear from some of those people what they really think of Mrs. Dog. And these are people who knew her personally, and they can really tell you the truth about the person that she really is. So Sherwin, let me go over to you, and you can run those five inserts one after the other for me, please.
I am Alex Sorrento, formerly Stevenson. I first knew Dorothy Leevey as a pupil in the fourth form of the convent high school, where I was her English literature teacher. She was a very bright pupil with an inquiring mind, very good at English grammar. I left for the UK soon after and did not see Dorothy until I came back to Dominica in 1966. We became friends, and I was asked to be godmother to her second son. We have known each other for about 68 years now and have remained very close friends. Dorothy has always been a very articulate person, a brilliant writer, and a person very much involved in church and community. She became the first Dominican to become principal of the convent high school, a role which she handled with great dedication until she retired. All in all, Dorothy Leevey can be classed as a great and inspiring Dominican woman.
In the popular imagination, a hero is a person of prominence. Their picture appears in print or visual media. Their words are reported in the press and on television, and myths and legends grow up around them. So how does Dorothy Leevey qualify to be a leader? I believe she does so by her examples of loyalty and fidelity. In thinking of what I was going to say in honor of her, I realized that she was involved with the convent high school for more than 50 years. As far as I know, that is the only institution at which she worked. She began as a classroom teacher and ended her illustrious career as principal of the school. Imagine in those 50 years, she would have had an influence on thousands of Dominican young ladies. My first professional association with Mrs. Leevey was in the 1970s, the late 1970s. We attended a workshop in anticipation of the introduction of the Caribbean Examinations Council examinations. What struck me at the workshop was the level of respect that other educators in the region, some of whom knew her personally, had for her. On my return to Dominica in 1981 to head the grammar school, I had the privilege of working with Mrs. Leevey. Whatever else was happening around her, she always remained calm and soft-spoken. She was not one for jumping on soapboxes, and she had no axes to grind. Her primary concern was the welfare of her staff and the academic development of her students. She was a natural leader who developed others around her, as evidenced by the fact that there was no void when she retired as principal. Mrs. Leevey has great reserves of faith, which have sustained her as she faced the vicissitudes of life. As a teacher of English and literature, she has developed an enduring concern for precise expression in several generations of Dominican women. Her loyalty to her alma mater is certainly unparalleled in Dominica and may also be a record in the region. Her services to education should have been recognized years before. May she continue to inspire present and future generations of Dominican teachers.
This is Dave Shillingford with a tribute to my friend Dorothy Leevey. Dorothy and I have been good friends for many, many years. I first met her on a picnic at Scottshead that she and a few friends had organized. We were in sixth form then and studying for the Cambridge Higher School certificate. Subsequently, Dorothy passed the exam with distinction, won the Island Scholarship, but accepted a more favorable scholarship to the University of Toronto. On graduation, Dorothy returned to Dominica and took a teaching position at the convent high school. My mother, Mrs. Abbott Shillingford, was also teaching at the convent, and she and Dorothy became fast friends. Dorothy would sometimes visit our home, where she, my mother, and I would chat about economic development, education, and the teaching profession. It was then that I got to know Dorothy personally. She was very smart and intellectually agile, but she was also thoughtful and kind and had a sense of humor. Dorothy and I parted when I went to the US. Though she was in Dominica and I in Florida, we collaborated closely for many years on various projects. She was always generous with her time and ideas, and very dependable. One of these projects was the Dominica Island Scholars List. In it, Dorothy, who was principal at the convent for several years, stands out as one of the 2 secondary school principals who produced the most island scholars. Further, she is the author of several interesting books recording and fleshing out Dominica themes. But above all, over all these years, Dorothy has been a loyal and faithful friend to me and my siblings, and I treasure her friendship. Dorothy married my friend Alfred Leevey, and they have 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. It was most gratifying to learn that their son Geoffrey had recently graduated with a doctorate in computer science. He must have made Dorothy and Alfred very proud. It is leaders like Dorothy that Dominica needs. I am proud to be her friend, and Dominicans too can be proud of her. Her achievements, her commitment to the island, and her selfless contribution to the community. I wish her many happy years in retirement. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Q95 FM, for affording me the privilege of paying tribute to Mrs. Dorothy Leevey, a true national hero, particularly as it pertains to her exemplary teaching. To me, the name Mrs. Leevey is synonymous with education, and more specifically, the word literature. I remember being a young student in her class at the convent high school after struggling among ourselves to figure out this new word or even how to pronounce it, hearing for the very first time the word literature, uttered so beautifully by Mrs. Leevey, was truly awe-inspiring and formed the catalyst for an exciting journey of learning and discovery far beyond the convent classroom. Whether consciously, subconsciously, or even vicariously, Mrs. Leevey has had an indelible impact on both my academic and professional life. As students, we can certainly attest to Mrs. Leevey's tremendous enthusiasm for language and teaching, her mentorship, her willingness to bring out the best in us, and in turn, how much we enjoyed and appreciated learning from her and being in her presence. There's no doubt that she cared for us in meaningful and significant ways. Through her pedagogy and teaching style, Mrs. Leevey transcended the prescribed English literature curriculum, ensuring that we were all au courant with a range of literacies, including the biographies of our own local and regional heroes. She delivered a literary experience that was holistic and culturally relevant, raising awareness of the intrinsic link between language and culture, while fostering a sense of inclusion, balance, and connectedness beyond just the linguistic aspect to one that was positive, soothing, and fulfilling. Guided by this divine teaching presence and intuition, Mrs. Leevey created in the classroom what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has referred to as a beloved community, an atmosphere of cooperation, attitudes of overall well-being, and positive communication through mutual trust and respectful discipline. By building rapport and nurturing the emotional, aesthetic, and spiritual components, she managed not only to transmit information, but to enhance and transform students' learning experience. Indeed, this holistic approach to education, focusing on relationships, is akin to the spirit of agape, this unconditional love, which fueled passionate learning that was alive and well in the classroom and beyond. And so, La Luta Continua, an exemplary Dominican scholar and positive role model, Mrs. Dorothy Leevey continues to educate and inspire. So let me conclude by offering these words of gratitude to Mrs. Leevey. En français, s'il vous plaît. Chère Madame Leevey, de la part de vos anciens étudiants, je tiens à vous remercier du fond de mon cœur de tout ce que vous avez fait pour nous en tant que professeur exemplaire. En plus, votre engagement dans la communauté ainsi que votre contribution au développement et à la promotion de la littérature autochtone s'avèrent bénéfiques non seulement pour les Dominicains, mais le monde entier. Merci infiniment. Vous êtes, chère madame, notre véritable héroïne nationale.
As the years went by, the bond became even stronger, and we never lost that connection no matter where we were in the world. Dorothy and I strengthened that bond when we were both teachers at a convent. As we began our families, our children assumed that we were related. My eldest daughter, Anthea, called Dorothy Dossie. And to this day, to our family, she is our Dossie, a term of endearment. Her daughter, Tara, is my goddaughter. Geoffrey, Kim, Palessa are very dear to us, the Charleses. Like our children are dear to the Leeveys. Interestingly, my husband, Jeff Charles, taught with Alfred Leevey at the Dominica Grammar School. Truly 6 degrees of separation. So you can well imagine how well I know Dorothy Leevey. Her brilliance is unquestionable as a teacher, scholar, and author. Mrs. Leevey was the first layperson to hit the convent high school. She did not only lead with grace and heart, but she brought the CHS to new heights. As my alma mater, it was with pride that I watched this amazing woman lead the convent high school. Yet her influence went far into the community and the Caribbean. She was an advisor to the CX examination, and Dorothy did not only encourage our young writers in Dominica, but she tutored and edited whenever needed. Dorothy Thomas Leevey is truly incredible. A woman of faith, an exemplary and dedicated wife, mother, grandmother, sister, aunt, an outstanding teacher and leader. Yet she approaches life with kindness, warmth, caring, humility, and no ego. Yes, that laugh. It resonates because it comes from a place of goodness. I love you, Dossie, my friend and sister.
Well, you've just heard from Alex Sorrento. You've heard from Anthony Lockhart. You heard from Dr. Dave Shillingford, Dr. Malin Charles, and now Dr. Susan Charles. And we all have heard about Jeff Charles, famous Jeff Charles. He taught me at school, at the grammar school. That was his wife, Dr. Susan Charles. But Sherwin, before we go on, I want to take a little bit more music. Let's take a little pause and get a little bit more flowers from Dice. And then when we come back after the little break there, I want to ask Tara, because Tara, you some of these comments that you're hearing about your mom, many of those people knew her and they were commenting about things that their relationship with her long before you were born. So when we come back, I will ask you, um, after the little music break, I will ask you how you feel when you hear those things about your mom. Sure, let's take a little bit of dice. All right. Well, we can't take too much music because we have so many tributes to Mrs. Dorothy Leevey tonight. I wish we could play a few of her favorite songs and all of that, but I mean tonight it's very tight. I'm not sure we're going to be able. I'm not even sure we can play all of the tributes. We may not have time to play all of those that we have already. But Tara, I really wanted to ask, how does it feel when you hear people are talking about? And these are people who are great people. They've accomplished much because of her. She taught most of them. Your thoughts?
Well, the tributes to my mom are true. I can tell you she is very generous and kind hearted. She has always come to my rescue. That is my personal testimony. And as my daughter Maria once said, Granny is the glue that holds the family together. And she discerned this at a very young age. So not only is she kind, as the various persons have mentioned, but she's also a tower of strength. So I really want to say that, the tributes are excellent. They are true. They truly describe my mom, and she is really deserving of this award.
And Mrs. Dorothy Levy, we have to come to you a couple of times, and I want to come to you now just for a minute because I know we have much to exchange with you a little later on. But I mean, so far you're listening to some of your old friends, and I'm not talking about their age. I'm talking about the fact that they've been great friends of yours. And how do you, when you listen to some of those things, what does it make you feel? Because you have many more of those to come.
Well, I do feel overwhelmed. And when one hears so many good, so many positive things said, you just feel, I wish I could have done better along the way. And it gives you the strength, the inspiration to really do better in the few years, hopefully, that one has left in this world. So I really thank everyone, and it really gives me that good feeling that life is worth living, and that what I have done in the past, I really enjoyed it. I mean, and that is something that I am forever grateful for. That there are so many people who get stuck in jobs which they do not like, jobs which were forced on them. But I really feel good that I was given the opportunity to head the school, to work with staff members who were very cooperative and hardworking, and then to have parents, most of whom I must say were also so appreciative. I mean, the parents. And it gives me pleasure when I meet the parents today, even if the children graduated so many years ago, just to hear how the children are doing, just to hear how they're coping with life. So I always derive pleasure from that.
Well, let me tell you that we're just getting started. And don't start thanking people yet because you're going to have so many people to thank. You will never stop thanking. But I wanted to move on because we have so many of these voice inserts. The next five, I'm going to ask Sherwin to run for me. Felix Wilson, Germania Collier Didier, Lonnie Lockhart, J.K.
Goff.
Is Goff.
Yeah, the former principal, the Englishman of grammar school.
Okay, excellent. And Jane Ulysses.
Yeah, really.
Okay. Yeah, so Sherman, if you can run those five tributes, we appreciate that. Let's hear some more great things about Mrs. Dorothy Leevey.
What an amazing individual. Dorothy Leevey does not realize her own potential and the unselfish contribution she has made to Dominica and Dominicans, particularly in education. I first encountered Dorothy as the wife of A.C. Leevey, my former geography teacher at the Dominica Grammar School in the late 60s. I saw this beautiful lady at the University of the West Indies Extramural Center on Emsall Road under the tutelage of Dr. Muller, who was the director of that institution. Although I was never taught by her, however, I remembered some of my DGS colleagues attending her general paper AS level classes. Through her husband, DGS boys found out about Dorothy's family when Kim, her first son, was born. The late K. Polydor, or K. Clarendon Polydor, formerly known as Ma Po, a lifetime friend and English and Spanish teacher at the grammar school. She held Dorothy in the highest esteem. We knew then she was competent in French and English literature. Dorothy was a pillar of Convent High School after she was appointed principal of that famous and sung girls-only private and later government-assisted secondary school owned by the Catholic Church. She was much admired because Dorothy maintained a high standard of discipline and excellence in academic pursuits at the CHS. On my return from studies in the UK, I became family to Dorothy as the husband of her first cousin, Celia Eugene, whose father, Bernard Eugene, was her uncle. I had also the opportunity to teach her brilliant son, Geoffrey Leevey, chemistry at CDCC, Clifton Dupini Community College. When I became principal of the Dominica Grammar School in 1990, Dorothy became my mentor and fervent competitor. She will never know how she inspired and motivated me then. We would often share opinions on student selection from the common entrance examination, do trade-offs, and generally try to have the best girls attend our respective schools. Notably, she would usually get the cream of the crop, particularly if the girls were Catholics. We had this ongoing tracking on which school produced the Island Scholar. We collaborated in curriculum development and selection and standardization of textbooks for all subjects taught in secondary schools. I had simply admiration for her articulation and humility. During our time as principals, Dorothy joined me and other principals to inaugurate the Dominica Association of Principals of Secondary School, DAPS. The latter was a professional avenue and resource to monitor and direct curriculum activities at secondary schools, definitely not an industrial union. I have been so overwhelmed by this astute educator that in 1997, I sought her consent to become a board member of BB Trust, Inc., a body designed to assist financially needy students to attend tertiary level education in pursuit of courses in French, French culture, hospitality, and agriculture. My friend and confidant, Dorothy Leevey, always wants the inside story of any event that interests her. Dorothy is a kindred soul who will never cause harm to anyone. She has worked tirelessly in education and other fields with little rewards, hence her humility. I have been privileged to know and work with her. Currently, in her retirement, she has faithfully been taking utmost care of her husband. This beautiful lady has an excellent head of hair, whom I have known and admired is aging gracefully. Dorothy, you are a special gift to humanity.
I got to know Mrs. Dorothy Leevey in 1979 when I became a student of the Sixth Form College, then known as Sifocol. She was my English and French tutor. A quiet lady with a soft voice, she conducted her classes quite effectively. She was always prepared and ready to deliver her lessons with enthusiasm. I enjoyed learning under her supervision. I looked forward to my English classes, and today I can say that she played a great part in my love for literature. Mrs. Leevey was a caring person and was always concerned about the well being of her students. Even years later, she would meet her students on the street and remember them, and would always ask about how they were doing and what was happening in their lives. She would be especially happy when she would find out that they had moved on and had done wonderful things for themselves, those who became doctors, lawyers, teachers, and the list went on. Later on, I became a member of the White Kubuli Writers, of which she was a part, and I was able to interact with her on a colleague level this time. Ever a teacher, she facilitated presentations for the group, and there again I was able to get my English writing skills further sharpened. Mrs. Levy's love for English is evident in her speech, and she's ever willing to help in the area of editing. It was no wonder that in her retirement years, she became a creative writer. Currently, she's a published author, and I've had the joy of reading some of her work. Mrs. Levy's expertise has allowed her to be used as a judge in many literary competitions, as well as in some pageants. She has willingly served her society with her gifts and talents for many years. It gives me great pleasure today to celebrate my past teacher and colleague, and I commend her on this, her special recognition. A teacher, yes. A writer, yes. Someone who has willingly given to her society. We say today, kudos to Mrs. Leevey, indeed a hero.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ione Lockhart. I first met Mrs. Dorothy Leevey in 1981 when I moved to Dominica from Jamaica. I saw a not very tall woman who held herself tall, prim and proper, commanding respect. Whenever I came in contact with her, she was always pleasant as she sought to find out how I was settling in. I will never forget her kindness in welcoming me to her country. Many years later, I joined the staff at Convent High School. I had heard that Leevey was a brilliant scholar, and I now witnessed that she was also a highly competent administrator. She was confident and firm, yet never bossy or overbearing in her interaction with staff, parents, or students. The prim and proper lady I first met turned out to be, well, not so really prim and proper. Dorothy is a lively, witty soul who participated fully in the cultural activities of her community. I still have vivid mental pictures of her dressed up for Journée Creole or strolling down Queen Mary Street during Carnival. I have enjoyed her published short stories of Dominican life. My friend, a true Dominican, enjoys a Beth. She will make an apt comment on happenings around her, but in my 40 years around Dorothy, I have never heard her malparler anyone, not even a politician. Dorothy has no malice in her and has a knack of being able to put a positive spin on anything negative. She never grumbles or complains, even under duress. Dorothy Leevey has dedicated her life to service, to her family, her church, and to her community at large. She could have stayed overseas to distinguish and enrich herself like many of her peers, but she chose to enrich the development of Dominica without expectation of favor or honor. I feel honored to have walked a bit along the path of life with Dorothy Leevey. I attribute her humility, her wisdom, courage, and integrity to her profound Christian faith. Dorothy does not identify as religious, yet her life reads like the gospel of Christ. I applaud the QDos to our Heroes Committee for handing Mrs. Dorothy Leevey this beautiful tribute while she's alive. Dorothy, my beautiful sister friend, congratulations. May God continue to bless and keep you and your wonderful family.
Leevey is a special sort of person, very, very special. I've known Dorothy for over 54 years. My link with Dorothy began in 1968 when I was appointed to teach at Dominica Grammar School. At the DGS, I met Alfred Leevey, and then, through Alfred, Dorothy. Her obvious warmth cemented our relationship, which has endured over the years. Firstly, Dorothy, the friend. The friendship was very important when I met and married Rosemary in 1969. Rosemary was a midwife at the Princess Margaret Hospital in Goodwill. On our marriage, we adopted Sheridan from the maternity ward, and thus we three started our life in Dominica. Here, Dorothy was wonderful, a help and guide when needed with Cherry and later on with her son, Timothy. A friendship that was and still is very much valued. I hope we have been able to reciprocate that friendship over past years. Secondly, Dorothy, the family person. As a wife, mother, and grandmother, Dorothy is an exemplar to all. She is a wife to Alfred, a mother of 4 lovely children, Tara, Geoffrey, Kim, and Pelisa. Of very special note has been her role as grandma to Maria. Maria's success this summer as one of the outstanding scholars at the State College speaks volumes of Dorothy's love and support to her family. Similarly, her care for Alfred in his current situation further emphasizes the specialness. Thirdly, Dorothy the educator, from Ireland scholar to a graduate, to teacher at the CHS, to head teacher of the CHS. It says it all, outstanding and unrivaled. For me, it was more practical, but equally important and valuable to know this form of Dorothy. I was honored to be able to be made head teacher of the DGS in 1970. In 1971, I sought and received Dorothy's support in proposing and initiating the introduction of girls to the DGS. She saw and shared the value in some girls having access to a secular educational opportunity. Similarly, when in 1973 I was asked to set up the Sixth Form College, Dorothy was one of the key people I talked to about providing appropriate support for the convent girls who came to the college. Latterly, as head teacher of the CHS, she became a beacon for her girls and was an immensely successful head teacher. Fourthly, Dorothy the author. Dorothy has always been a literary person, well-read, and someone who's always valued the creative world of literature and the arts. Her books are on my shelf, read and enjoyed. Her involvement in promoting and encouraging the wider arts world throughout Dominica is much valued. Fifthly and finally, Dorothy the Dominican. With a wide and full life with her family, a generous range of friendship links, of educational success, island-wide involvement in the arts, there still has been room throughout her life for a love of Dominica itself. She loves Dominica with a passion. That she is being honoured as a heroine of Dominica is very well deserved, and I know Dorothy will carry this honour as she has done with everything in her life, with dignity, with modesty, and a quiet acceptance of being so honoured. Jeff Goff, head teacher and head teacher of the DGS 68 to 73, founding principal of the Sixth Form College, and simultaneously acting principal of the Clifton Community Technical College, the base of the state.
A tribute to Dorothy Leevey. Dorothy Thomas, as she was then known, had a reputation for being bright when we attended the convent high school together in 1958. With her pleasant and encouraging demeanor, she had none of those airs and graces displayed by so many of the senior girls. And so, shy Form 1 students, such as myself, were drawn towards her, seeking advice and reassurance. That year, she won the hotly contested Ireland Scholarship. However, one of the nuns had seen her potential both as a bright student and future nun, and so Dorothy was whisked away to the Grail, an international Christian school in Ohio. There, she met and made friends with young students from all over the globe, some of whom are still in touch to this day. Her 2 years at the Grail were followed by a 3-year degree course in Canada, and for a number of years she served the convent high school as a highly talented teacher. Some astute official in the education department thought it a pity, though, to limit Dorothy's services only to the convent, and so he roped her in as a sixth form teacher across secondary schools. As the years went by, Mrs. Leevey became, unsurprisingly, principal of the convent high school, and she led the school's 100th anniversary celebrations, with alumni traveling from far and wide to be part of the occasion. Many professional high achievers, both here and in the diaspora, will bear testimony to Mrs. Leevey's positive influence on their lives. In my case, our friendship has endured for more than half a century. Now retired, Dorothy is, however, busier than ever. She's a published writer, dynamic organizer, and contributor to multiple organizations within the church, education, and culture on Dominica. She's also a founding member of the burgeoning White Tukubuli Writers Group. It would be remiss of me not to mention Dorothy's fine cooking skills. Sunday lunch with the Leeveys is always one of the highlights of my holidays back home. Over the years, Dorothy has remained caring, humble, and has never lost her mischievous sense of humor. Whoever supplies her with those hilarious videos, which she so generously shares across international WhatsApp, please don't stop sending them. You are helping our dear friend Dorothy Leevey in a lifetime of service, uplifting and educating minds and spirits.
Well, yes. And, when I keep hearing those things, I'm not one of your kids. I'm not one of your siblings, but I feel so proud to have known you. Before I go to the next 5 people, I'm going to ask Corinne to unmute her mic, because I don't think Corinne had completed her presentation to Mrs. Leevey tonight, and I know that she has a few things that she would like to say. So after we're done hearing from Corinne, then we'll go to the next 5 inserts that we have, the voice tributes. So just to alert showing, we'll be doing Janice Eugene Monell, we'll be doing Josephine Watts Dublin, Justice Dr. Irving Andre, Lola Riley, and then Mrs. Dorothy Leevey's children. So let me go over to you, Corinne, to complete your remarks.
Thank you, Mr. G. Hi, Mrs. Leevey.
Hi.
I think the computer wanted to remind me of my days dashing in and out of your office, and the times that I really did not want to be there. And this program truly has been one I was looking forward to, because I remember fondly the days being in your classroom, number one, and the days having you as the principal of the convent high school. And I was part of the group that saw the transition from religious leadership principal of the convent high school to the first lay leadership. And you have left and continue to leave an indelible mark on us young girls who attended the convent high school. I can speak for many, many, many of the young women. As Mr. G tried to say that maybe I was one of your favorites, I wanted to say to him that Mrs. Leevey actually had no favorites, because we were all Mrs. Leevey's favorites. And Mrs. Leevey led in a way that made everyone feel important and special. And she wanted excellence for every single student of the convent high school. Even those of us who were as troublesome as me in my first and second form years in convent high school. By the time I got to third form, Mrs. Leevey and I had many serious conversations, and I believe that's when I began to take my lessons extremely seriously and began to excel more and more. And the life that she imbued, I think, in us as young women, that we could be anything that we wanted to be, that we should strive for excellence in everything that we did, and that we should do so with a sense of humor, which many people have mentioned that Mrs. Leevey has, and her laugh always brought joy to so many of us. And so that way of excellence, humor, and being all that we can be in this life, I think is a gift that can never be repaid. And we thank you tremendously from the bottom of our hearts, Mrs. Leevey.
Well, Sheridan, after these words from Corinne, I think before we go into the next five, we must take a little bit of music from the King Dice with some flowers there, and then a brief little intervention. Then we can go to the next five tributes to Mrs. Leevey.
Okay, I'm showing.
Come this year to deliver flowers, royal homegrown, the best for the upright and honest citizens who uphold their moral grounds in these times of lies, mischief, and corruption. Flowers on the shelf awaiting delivery, calling all good people back to honesty. If bad seems to reward bad people, then good must outdo that too. Though the names.
But Kevin, as much as I love the music, as much as I love the music, we have to go on because of time. So maybe you could run the next five tributes from now.
Feel honored to have been asked to pay tribute to you, Dorothy. This recognition is so well deserved. Dots, as you are affectionately called within our family circle, you are regarded as the matriarch of our family. You are one of the most generous and caring individuals I know. Your thoughtfulness and concern for family and friends is so remarkable, and your knack for staying in touch with distant relatives is one of the things you do best. You remain a good and supportive wife to Alfred, and a mother and grandmother any child could wish for. Always patient, fair, but with a quiet sternness when necessary. The education of your children always took priority, and they have made you proud. But you never hesitate to express your happiness, elation, and pride when those within our family or in the community also achieve academic success. We often share on health issues and other recent challenges. Your ability to laugh at yourself and find humor in these situations is remarkable. I constantly marvel. Advice, if sought from you, is always sound, solid, and objective. Family occasions would never be the same without you. So without a doubt, Dots or Auntie Dots is always on the list. We appreciate you so very much in our family, and pray that the Lord continues to guide you, grant you good health, never mind the knee, long life, and contentment. Congratulations, love always, Janice.
I feel honored and privileged to contribute to this program honoring Mrs. Dorothy Leevey as a Dominican shero. Notwithstanding her physical appearance, Mrs. Leevey, by her personality, and service to Dominica, is a woman of immense mental and psychological stature. Having served as a deputy at the convent high school for some 21 years, I can certainly attest to her gentleness of spirit, her honesty, attention to detail and to transparency, her general love for people, and her passion for putting her Christian faith in action. Her love of literature was not, I believe, a selfish passion, but was an instrument by which she was able to consider the human condition with all its foibles, a tool she used in providing empathy, support, care, and even at times confronting those with whom she came in contact. One quality that still stands out even today was her ability to deal with mistakes or errors on the part of her subordinates. She did not come across as being judgmental, and I felt that though errors should be avoided as much as possible, being truthful about them and attempting to mitigate their effects were lessons learned from Mrs. Leevey. Mrs. Leevey also demonstrated great humility. I recall that when the school attempted to migrate to digital tools, Mrs. Leevey neither negated the recommendations from her staff as just being the pursuit of newfangled notions, nor did she take the position that she had to be totally in charge of the initiatives. Rather, while expecting adequate explanations from her team, she gave them her blessings to the project, and this truly caught Convent High School on the enviable road of being one of the earliest adopters in digital transformation of operations and programs. I therefore take this opportunity to congratulate Mrs. Leevey most enthusiastically on this honor being bestowed on her. I do this on behalf of my family, the wider Convent High School family, and the Catholic Schools Board of Management. And I do express that this award is most deserving.
Mrs. Dorothy Leevey strode the hallowed halls and corridors of the convent high school and former sixth form college like a monarch of all that she surveyed. Diminutive, her hair perpetually coiffed in a manner reminiscent of Princess Anne, her stern visage occasionally broke into a smile or greeting. The authority which she yielded fitted like a bespoke suit. Within the classroom, she traveled effortlessly through the works of William Shakespeare, John Keats, Lord Byron, and revealed to us a secret world of simile, metaphor, assonance, and alliteration. She critiqued our work and ensured that we did not stumble over a cliff of irrelevance, indifference, and inertia. She shepherded us through the pastures, the hills, and valleys of advanced literature, and red carpeted the road I later traveled as an undergraduate student at the University of the West Indies. How do you repay one who has given so much to so many over so long a period of time? How do you value the time, the effort, sacrifice, dedication, and commitment to excellence exhibited by one with little or no expectation of reward? How do we acknowledge the contributions of one who, with the likes of educators such as Josephine Josephs, the late Dr. K. Polydor, Alwyn Bully, Bernard Bulcher, Henry Bolney, Arthur James, and Vance Leblanc, among others, are suspended like pearls in a necklace around the neck of an island which is often hard-pressed to acknowledge the sterling contributions of its educators. Fortunately, with this fitting recognition by Q95 Radio of an extraordinary teacher, headmistress, school administrator, author, influencer, and mentor, I am comforted by the fact that Mrs. Leevey will not have cause to utter with great despair and despondency, were there not 10. I thank you and congratulations to Mrs. Leevey.
Hi, Dorothy. Greetings from your old friend Lola. I can hear you now making a joke about old, but remember, I always told you that you were ahead of me. When I was asked to do a tribute for you, I was delighted and thought this is my opportunity to reveal all your secrets. But then I realized that a tribute is supposed to praise the person, so never fear, your secrets are safe with me. Dorothy and I go back quite a way to the time when she returned to Dominica after she graduated from the University of Toronto. It was an instant friendship, and she was instrumental in giving me information on St. Joseph's College, the residence I was going to go to when I went up to university. Dorothy and I chummed together quite a bit, and she frequently dropped in at our home to say hello to my dad. She always had a mischievous twinkle in her eye and a sly smile on her face, and she would pose endless questions as she liked to know everything. One would say that she had an inquiring mind and a great sense of humor, coupled with that infectious laugh. Among the many memories of Dorothy that stayed with me was the idyllic 2-week holiday that Dorothy, my sister Leona, and my cousin Helen spent at Scott's Head, my mother's family home. Did we have fun, what with sea bathing, walking to Soufriere for Sunday Mass, making pilgrimages to the Scott's Head Cross, lazing in the evening on the veranda telling great ghost stories. It was a memorable and precious time that bonded us even further. I left Dominica and did not work with Dorothy to get to see her exceptional leadership skills that she brought to her career as the headmistress of the convent high school. But we corresponded regularly by email and WhatsApp, and we exchanged information on current events in Dominica, as well as news concerning our families. Even in emails, she would not let the slightest bit of information slide by her. She would question me about the various members of my family, and in turn she gave me information on her children and grandchildren. She presented me with the first edition of the book she had written and solicited my reaction, asking me to be honest with my assessment. Dorothy epitomizes what true friendship means, and I am grateful that this tribute has provided me with the opportunity to tell her how proud I am to count her as my friend.
We, the 4 children, wanted to express our love and appreciation to you, our mother, with these few words. From Kim, nothing short of exceptional when new challenges call for innovative thinking. Indeed, a selfless person with genuine compassion in all that she does. From Joffrey, the word phenomenal does not even begin to describe my mom. From her humble beginnings in Pottersville, she has overachieved again and again. My mom's outlook on life definitely makes me feel that I can accomplish anything. From Palessa, Mom has always been my rock and role model. She instilled in me values of discipline and respect. I have always been proud of my mom. Her constant love and support continue to be my source of strength along life's journey. And from me, Tara, Mom, you are my hero. You have rescued me from trials over and over again. Where would I be without you? The love and care that you exhibit towards your children, grandchildren, husband, and the community at large indicate the saintly qualities that you possess. I love you, Mom, and can't imagine life without you.
Well, all of this is excellent. I mean, it's really, really excellent. And I'm even afraid to go back to Mrs. Leevey to ask her for comments, but I won't do that now. But because I know that it must be touching her to hear all those wonderful things being said about her by so many people. What I'd like to do now, because of the time element here, Sherwin, I'm going to give out the numbers to the public so that they can call at any time that they want to make a little contribution, make an input. The numbers are 767-449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, or 616-4257. And if you're overseas and you would like to call in and to say a few words of congratulations to Mrs. Dorothy Leevey, you can call 305-432-9624. So So 449-3095, 3096, 3097, 616-4257, 305-432-9624. These are the numbers you can call. So Sherwin, you let me know if and when you have a call, and then we can probably allow you to take the call. So give the public, our listeners, an opportunity to be involved and to embrace Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. But just make me a sign when you have a call. You have a call? Well, let's take it. Okay, so if you don't have the call yet, what I'd like to do, I'd like to know, let's go ahead because of time. I wanted to go through, run some of the other voice inserts that we have there, because we have quite a few of them that we have to go through still. So Sherwin, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to sort of line up the next 5 voice inserts, which would be Mrs. Paula Mapp, Overlobby, Ruby Roy, Mrs. Dorothy Leevey's sisters, and Trudy Christian. So if we take those 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I would go over to Mrs. Leevey's sister, Anita, to say a few words, about her dear sister. So Sherwin, I will let you now run this 4 voice inserts.
My name is Paula Mapp Overlobby, and I was Mrs. Dorothy Leevey's roommate in St. Joseph's College residence of the University of St. Michael's College in the University of Toronto between September 1964 and June 1966, when she graduated with her BA. Dorothy, we were so impressed by your maturity, your spirituality, your disciplined focus to achieve your goals, to get your degree and to return to your homeland, Dominica, to teach as first layperson in the convent school in Roseau. We are proud that you met and excelled in your youthful goal, thereby making a difference in the lives of your family and countless other Dominicans, resulting in this award as citizen number 12, who made a significant contribution to life in your homeland. May God bless and keep you. May God, who alone knows your true contribution, reward you now and always. With love, Paula, Anne, and Janet. God bless.
Greetings to everyone, and congratulations to Mrs. Dorothy Leevey on being honored as a national hero of Dominica. Her rise to national acclaim had been visible on the horizons since her early days in education. The late Dr. K. Polidor predicted Mrs. Leevey's promise many moons ago. When I first went to Dominica in 1966, I taught at the Dominica Grammar School, as did Dr. Polidor, and Mrs. Leevey taught at the Convent High School. On one occasion, while on a visit to the Dominica Grammar School, Mrs. Leevey was in discourse with members of staff. Observing her involvement, Dr. Polidor said to me, "You know, that girl has a lot more going for her than she realizes." Well, on September 26, 2022, Dr. Polidor's insight is realized as Mrs. Dorothy Leevey is receiving the well-deserved honor of National Hero. On my second return to Dominica, I joined Mrs. Leevey in teaching at the Convent High School. We became close friends. She has always had an inquiring mind. There is nothing you can say to her that she will just take at face value. She examines every idea carefully and has to be satisfied that she fully understands it before accepting it and moving on. This quality makes her an invaluable advisor to anyone. Mrs. Leevey and myself have remained close over the years despite the distance between us. In the old days, we kept in touch by letters, then moved with the times onto email, and now it's WhatsApp, which allows us to be in touch daily. Mrs. Dorothy Leevey possesses an exceptional network of international contacts that she actively maintains. A few years ago, I visited Dominica and stayed with her family. She treated me royally. She's an excellent host to visitors to Dominica. Her dedication to her family is outstanding. She has cared for her husband and children with passion and extended the same to her lovely granddaughter Maria, who recently graduated with many awards from the Dominica Sixth Form College and is now a student of the University of the West Indies, while her son Geoffrey recently obtained his PhD. Dorothy Leevey is a truly amazing and God-fearing woman of Dominica who has contributed beyond measure to her beloved country. It is fitting that she is being honored in this way, and I am so pleased to be a part of it. May God continue to bless and keep you, my dear friend, Dorothy.
Dorothy, you've been the pride of our family. It's no wonder that you've been a role model to us, your sisters, Nita, Sissy, and Marilyn. You've achieved and accomplished so much. You were the second female island scholar in Dominica at a time when few Dominican women earned college degrees. You were the first lay principal of the convent high school. Our admiration extends way beyond your intellect. Your unwaning commitment to family, students, as well as your love for Dominica has made a difference in the lives of so many. Individually, you have made a difference in each of our lives. From Anita, you were my inspiration for going on to college once the opportunity presented itself. I followed in your footsteps and majored in English literature. From you, I learned to appreciate the difference between great writing and a great story. From Sissy, you taught us lessons in responsibility. Upon your return from university, you ensured that each working member contributed accordingly to the household expenses. After I left Dominica, you gave me peace of mind knowing you would help supervise the care of our blind grandmother. From Maryland, I haven't visited in a few years, but weekly you bring Dominica alive as you always update me on what's going on and what fruits are in season. We exchange stories of our same age grandchildren. I look forward to our Sunday phone calls. You've been the family historian and have helped us recall stories of the past as well as parts of our family history lost to us. Those stories have enriched our lives as we pass them on to our children and grandchildren. You've maintained family connections with first and second cousins around the world, and from time to time, you provide us with updates. Dorothy, you've been more than a sister to us. We lost our mother when we were all so young, but on your return home from university, you became the matriarch of our family. We, your sisters, live overseas. Whenever we return to Dominica for visits, we not only have a home to return to, but we have a friend and a mother figure in you.
My high school principal, my boss, and a mentor. That is what Mrs. Dorothy Leevey has been for me. My name is Trudy Christian, and I first had the opportunity to encounter Mrs. Leevey as my high school principal between the years of 1996 to 2001. It was during that time that Mrs. Leevey afforded me one of the most important things that she could, which was a chance. She gave me a chance to debate in a debating competition, which crafted and molded my future. Mrs. Leevey was a strong principal, a no-nonsense principal, but also one who gave her students the chance to excel, the chance to grow, and the chance to make themselves what they needed to be for their future. Mrs. Leevey was a quiet inspiration to me and a support system, and believed in my abilities. And I think these were the characteristics of hers that I appreciated the most. As my boss, my first boss, when I taught at the convent high school between 2003 to 2005, Mrs. Leevey was my boss in the first year. And she proved to be an excellent role model, somebody that I aspired to be like professionally, and somebody who motivated me to be the best teacher that I could be. As a young teacher, a new teacher. Mrs. Leevey, throughout my life, continued as my mentor. She was never far away when needed, always responsive to calls for assistance, like those recommendation letters that she so dutifully wrote for me throughout my career and my academic career. Mrs. Leevey is indeed a woman of great ability, great strength, great talent, and someone who has inspired me throughout my academic and professional life. For my mother, Mrs. Jajak, who was a colleague of Mrs. Leevey as a fellow principal, Mrs. Leevey showed herself to be committed to her job as a principal, and my mother recalls that she was compassionate, caring for her students, and hardworking. And of course, her creative story writing was a memorable aspect of her varied talents. So, Mrs. Leevey, it has been a true honor to know you, to learn from you, and indeed to grow under your tutelage.
Yes, and thank you so much. That last voice that we just heard was the voice of Truly Christian. I'm going to ask Anita, who is Mrs. Dorothy Levy's sister, to open her mic if it's not yet open. Just unmute your mic if it's not yet muted. And excellent. I'm going to ask you in a moment to say a few words, and I just want to alert Dr. Simone Matthew because of the time element tonight. Dr. Simone, if you are able, I don't know if your technology is allowing you to do it tonight, but if you're able to see some of the persons who are on Facebook who may be making comments and, talking to Mrs. Leevey, I will ask you after Anita, maybe you could go to Facebook and acknowledge some of those persons. And I don't know whether we'll be able to take calls tonight. We'll see if we can make at least a 5 minutes to take a few calls from the public. But Anita, I wanted to go over to you now so you can say a few words.
Yeah, I want to simply say that it's been an emotional experience for me listening to the tributes. I find myself choking up at times. Dorothy, I always knew how special you were to us, but I had no idea that so many people saw the same sort of qualities in you that made us admire you and love you. And I'm proud and happy to have a sister like you, in you. So everyone who've made tributes to Dorothy, I just want to say they're well-deserved, Dorothy. So I'm basking the glory of those tributes.
Thank you so much, Anita. Dr. Simone, are you able to take a look at Facebook and see what's happening and acknowledge some folks there for us?
Oh, yes, absolutely, Mr. G. We have upwards of 76 people on the Facebook Live, and we know that over 1,000 people will potentially see this program. So that kind of speaks to the caliber of the person that Mrs. Leevey is, that so many people are interested in being a part of this program. So we have Claralyn Warrington, who says, good evening to you all. I'm watching and listening. Owen Prosper is with us. Glenda Lavidu Burton is giving a lot of claps. Peter Carbon, congratulations, Mrs. Leevey. Nixie Alfred is watching. Marina Charles, congratulations. Francine Harris, congratulations, Dorothy, well deserved. The lay principals who have followed you at the CHS have been standing on the high standards that you set. May you be graciously blessed. The special wishes coming from the Dominica Convent Schools Alumni Association of Ontario. Josephine Dublin Prince, congratulations, Mrs. Leevey. Elizabeth Douglas, congratulations, Mrs. Leevey, Convent High School Youth. Let's see who else we have with us. Veronica Pascal, congratulations. And Tonalia Doctoral, well deserved. Veronica Pascal, I bought a book from her. It is well autographed. Look at me. Father, see me. Okay. Abiel Christian, Marshall Lawrence, nice to see you. Debbie Murphy, congratulations, Mrs. Leevey, on this well-deserved award. She taught me English at CHS and had such a command of the English language. One could not help but speak proper English while in Ma Levy's class. Viva Mama, great to see you. Carol Fontaine, congratulations. T.D. Joseph, Lucinda Badwill Alfred, well-deserved recognition. Rosalind Severin McLean, congratulations. Dion George, a member of our QDos to Our Heroes Committee, says, congratulations to Mrs. Leevey. Sorry I can't make it tonight. I am still teaching. Mrs. Leevey gave me my first teaching opportunity. I am still doing so. Thank God for you, Mrs. Leevey. Leon Lando, great to see you. Anthony Simon, great to see you. Carol Levy, congratulations. Carol Levy, congratulations, Mrs. Leevey, on your well-deserved award. You are an inspiration to us all. Eileen Charles, great program, very well organized. Palessa Levy is on the Facebook Live. Palessa, great to see you. Words cannot express the love and admiration I feel for my mom. I am blessed to have a mother who has always sacrificed so much for her children. Mom continues to be a source of strength along life's journey. Thank you, Mom, for your constant love and encouragement. I love you always and pray that God will continue to bless you with long life, health, and joy. Jennifer Fidel Johnson, good to see you. Josephine Dublin says, Elora Smith, Octavia Macpherson, well-deserved award. Super Harris, great to see you. Iverna Joseph, Valerie Thomas, graduate of the CHS, class of 92, whoop, whoop. Will R. Charles, awesome individual. Marvelyn Pascal, Hal Berry, happy to know you, Mrs. Leevey. Let's see who else. Maureen Massicott, congratulations. Janice Eugene, so proud of you, Dots. Well-deserved. Mariana, I've always wanted to attend CHS, but Ma Leevey didn't give me a chance. Okay, well, this is not the time and place for that, Mariana. I hope you excelled wherever you ended up. Winnie Francis, congrats, Dorothy, well-deserved. Bernard Aline, great to see you. Greetings. Ma Leevey did not teach me, but she had an impact on the lives of those of us who were not her students as well. Discipline, dedication, love radiates from her and touched us. Much love from the Allen family. Congratulations. So as you can see, lots of tributes and accolades pouring in. So Mr. G, I want to hand it back to you, but Mrs. Leevey, again, congratulations.
Yes, and here's the thing that I'm going to take just two more tributes. These are two attorneys. It's Attorney Gabriel Christian and Attorney Sider James. And then we will go over to Mrs. Leevey to say a few words. But maybe before that, would you like to take a call, Sheridan, before we go on?
Yeah, hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We're hearing you very well.
Yeah, good evening, Mrs. Leevey. This is Zed Lloyd here. I felt it necessary on behalf of the SMA fraternity to reach out and give you some love, from our sister school and years of just niceness and good vibes and good experience. It was, you know, it's an honor knowing you and the family and all of that good stuff. I just want to wish you much love and much health and all the good, you know, good things in life. God bless you, my dear.
Thanks a lot, Zed. Thanks a lot. Sheridan, if you'd like to take another call, we can. Otherwise, I would want to go ahead because you know we don't have too much. You want me to go or you want to go? You want to take a call? Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Good night.
Good night to you.
Wonderful program. I want to tell Mrs. Leevey, this is Pamela journalist. I can recall while at the age of 26, my children found a briefcase of books from some child at a convent at the back. And I can recall that I really needed everything that was needed, but I just said, you can take it. I took it from the children. I brought it to you. And you really played a good role. And from that time, we became friends. And I want to thank you for your husband. He was a member of my church. You'd allow us to come and have cottage meeting and then give us all little pies or little eat before we go. So you deserve it all in order. So God bless you, bless your family, and bless Q95 for doing a good job, Mr. Sheridan.
And
Everything is going good.
And thank you so much. Thank you, Pamela. Appreciate that. Sheridan, you want to take another call before we go?
Hello.
Hello.
QDos to hear us?
Go right ahead.
Hello. Is this QDos to our Heroes Committee?
That's correct. Doing it for Mrs. Dorothy Leevey. You go right ahead.
Contribution. Hi, my name is Maureen, and I was one of Mrs. Leevey's students at the convent high school in the mid-80s.
Okay. Don't listen to your radio. Just speak into the mic of your phone. I think she's probably listening to her radio and hearing a voice coming back to her. There's always a delay when you're listening. So, Sheridan, we might have to take another call if you have it. Otherwise, we will go ahead. Take another call and go right ahead.
Go right ahead.
Hi, good evening, gentle people. Very interesting program. I want to commend the organizers for recognizing persons who have made a meaningful contribution to the development of Dominica. And I want to congratulate Mrs. Leevey for her job well done. She's a humble person. She's a very kind person, a lady who has done so much for country and people. And I'm happy to know that Q95 and the organizers are recognizing persons such of that magnitude. Congratulations. I'm so proud of Mrs. Leevey. Hats off, and this is coming from Michael Cooper. Take care and God bless.
Yes, I did.
Mr. G, can I jump in real quick? I forgot one important comment because I want to think that we want to recognize Mrs. Leevey not only for promoting excellence in academia, but as sports as well. Patricia Fontaine says she would send the whole of Convent High School to support the netball team against the rival school DGS. Sorry, Janice. Although she was not the sports teacher, she always wanted her school to be always on top. I wanted to throw that in.
Yes, and thanks a lot for that. Sheridan, would you like to take another call before we go? Okay, well, let's go ahead because we're running out of time, actually. But I'm glad we managed to squeeze in a few calls because I know there's many people out there in the public who really would like to call in and say a few words of congratulations to Mrs. Leevey. But Sheridan, we have these two attorneys. I'd like you to run their tributes, and then I'm going to go over and speak to Mrs. Leevey.
It is with great joy that I received news that a teacher from the days of the Sixth Form College, Dorothy Leevey, was to be honored with the National Hero Award by Q95 Radio. Q95 Radio has done us a great service as a community, as a nation, by taking time to honor those whose service to our country in ways of education, agriculture, industry, commerce, and other areas of endeavor have brightened our lives, made us more successful at what it is we do, and allowed for our progress in myriad ways. Dorothy Leevey is a bright star in that constellation of heroes. For many years, she toiled without pay as the primary English literature instructor at the Sixth Form College. My writing colleague, Jajivin Andre of Canada, myself, and many other Dominican professionals who attended the Dominican Sixth Form College in those days benefited from her outstanding instruction, from her superior intelligence, from her grace, her humanity, her compassion, her empathy. Little did we know that she was not being compensated for the extra work that she was doing during that time. That oftentimes she had to take from her own resources, her own modest resources, to acquire books for us and to acquire books for her teaching mission. And so today, as we honor Miss Leevey, let her service be a bright star to guide others to similarly give up themselves in service to their students, in service to community, doing their best at all times, and not always measuring the contributions they make by the monies that they're paid. Oftentimes, the most priceless things in life are more valuable than silver and gold. And Miss Leevey, or Mistress Leevey, at this time, we want to extend our congratulations, our love, our great satisfaction that you've been honored by your own community, by your own people, because it's said in the good book oftentimes that prophets are never welcomed in your own country, and that often people do not get their flowers before they die. But you have been honored. We honor you, we love you, and we thank Sheridan, Gregoire, and the team at Q95 for engaging in this tribute to you and to those like you who have made our lives richer, full of joy, full of accomplishment. God bless you, Miss Leevey, and your family, always, for the kindness you showed us and the knowledge you imparted to us. This is Gabriel Christian. God bless. Give thanks.
I am Zaida James, and I was a student at the convent high school for 5 years. And during that period, Mrs. Dorothy Leevey was our school principal. Now, as any of us girls will tell you, she did run a very tight ship, which at the time clashed with my free-spirited personality. And she would probably tell you if you spoke to her that I gave her quite a headache as a student. I remember constantly pushing boundaries, and I questioned all of her rules and her structure. And I do remember always wanting to break free of structure, at the time. But with the passage of time and as an adult, I do recognize that we experienced something very special at the convent high school. And all of us girls came through that environment with very little concern about possible gender confinement. And what that means is that none of the rules or the structure that I may have complained about, or none of the education hinged on us being female. There was a focus on and an expectation that we will become well-rounded human beings and contributing members of society. But none of that was based on us being girls. And that is a type of freedom that we could not really appreciate at the time until you go out into the wider world and you experience how the world tries to limit women. And importantly, you understand how you have very little interest in those limits. You recognize them, you acknowledge them, but you don't apply them to yourself. And I don't think I have, or I know any student of the convent high school who would have gone to school under the guidance of Mrs. Leevey, who chose not to pursue their dreams because of any perceived gender limitations. We can all travel, work, exist freely in our minds and in our bodies and in our souls. We are at peace with who we are, whether we're alone or with others. And we think in our ability to make choices without second guessing who we are. And we certainly do not feel remotely sabotaged by our gender. I do attribute that level of confidence and that type of bravery to the structure of the education system under the management and guidance by our then principal, Mrs. Dorothy Leevey, and of course the staff that she led. And for that, I'm forever grateful. I think that she should be very proud of that legacy. What she really gave us girls was freedom in our minds and the confidence that a lot of women in the world will never ever experience. She completely deserves the recognition that she's receiving today. I thank you, Mrs. Leevey. You were ahead of your time.
And yes, and we want to thank Zaida, James, and but let me just say this as I go over to Mrs. Leevey. Well, many people were trying to call, and we really tried to see if we could, allow some people time to call. But the time does not really permit us to do that. But there's two people, Lauren Del Sol wanted us to say hi to Mrs. Leevey, and Justice Dr. Irving Andre said he sent me a note and he says, "Congrats on what can only be described as a great program." Mrs. Leevey, we come into the end of the event honoring you, but you've heard so many people, and I'm talking about illustrious people in all walks of life who have called in and made contributions to you. And I wanted to go over to you, ask you, how do you feel? You spend your life working hard, helping people, but then is it a rewarding feeling when people come back and tell you how you've touched their lives in this, this very positive way? You probably did not know that you were touching so many people. And these are the only people who had an opportunity to pay tribute. There's probably thousands and thousands of other people whose lives you've touched. Let me just go over to you now, and then let Sherwin know that I don't know how he's going to split himself because we don't have Pastor Rodney here with us now, but here we have to make a contribution to you and give you your flowers, as I said, while you're alive, and your plaque and so on. So I don't know how Sherwin is going to split himself. I hope he has somebody there to assist him, and he still has to take some pics with that. Mrs. Leevey, I want to go over to you now to try to express how you feel about some of the tributes that were made to you tonight.
Well, Sheridan, I think you would understand, what an experience it was for me to listen to what was said here this evening. And as I said, really, you go through life and you do what it is that you have to, and you do not think really that it is having such an impact until really such an occasion presents itself. So I must thank you and Q95 for making this possible. Well, it is, I cannot really use words to describe that feeling of gratitude that I am experiencing at the moment from all those who have written, those who have sent in the tributes, and those who have organized, from those who have called. I really want to say really a big thank you. And that is not enough, I know, but still, I really want to express it, just to say thank you and thank you.
But then again, it's all well and good when a diverse group of people, many, many people from all walks of life, all over the globe, because they're spread all over the place that you've touched, and they pay that kind of tribute to you, to how you've touched your life. But then, isn't it something to know that your own siblings and your children, have the same sort of feel that you made the same kind of impact on them? Family is so important. And then it's not often that siblings get along. It's not often that all kids get along. But to me, when I listen to your children and your sisters and so on, the things they say about you tells me that you have to be somebody special. What do you think?
I thank God daily for them. I always say I have such generous, such good sisters. I really want them to know how much I appreciate them, how much I love them, how much I appreciate their consideration. Their thoughtfulness, like right now with my husband being sick. Anything that I require, they are there, eager to send. So I really appreciate them. And my children, of course, a blessing from the Lord, and I appreciate them. I pray for them, and I pray for their success. And I thank them also for their support over the years.
And I want you to know as well, that although we are all talking about the convent high school, I did confess that I went to the Dominica Grammar School. Mm-hmm. But all is not lost for me, because I managed to be taught by a gentleman called Alfred Leevey. And I don't know. I mean, what would you like to say about him? Because he must have been a pillar in your life. I mean, through thick and thin, he was there by your side, along with your children and your grandchildren and your sisters and brothers and so on. Anything you'd like to say about your husband, Alfred?
Oh, well, they can tell you that he was, I don't know, Tara, he, how should I put it? Took care of the spiritual development of all. He was very rigid in his approach to life because, I mean, he wanted the best for them, and he based his actions always on his faith, on his belief in God, and he tried his best to abide by that. So that really had a great impact on them. Now that he is not well, because I think the stress of the hurricane and the aftermath contributed to his getting the touch of dementia. And then a few months ago, he fell and he fractured his hip bone. So the surgery was done, but he's still unable to even sit up on his own. So that requires a lot of care and attention. So we all try, with him.
And we all want to say kudos to Mr. Alfred Leevey. He was a great teacher, very disciplined, very firm, but I personally learned a lot from him. Great role model. And I really wish him all the best. But Mrs. Leevey, because we're out of time, I wanted us to make a little presentation to you. As I said, I hope Sherwin can split himself. I don't know how he's going to do it without Pastor Rodney, to make the presentations to you, and at the same time to be able to take photographs of the presentation. I don't know how he's going to do it, but Sherwin is a genius. He's not like me, a little country bookie. So he should make out all right. Sherwin, while we're making the presentation to Mrs. Leevey, you can just put on a little music with the King Dice and the flowers while you're alive. So while you're making your presentation.
This year to deliver flowers, royal homegrown, the best for the upright and honest citizens who uphold their moral grounds in these times of lies, mischief, and corruption. Flowers on the shelf awaiting delivery, calling all good people back to honesty. If bad seems to reward bad people, then good must outdo that too. Though the names are numerous to mention, I'll do my best to deliver for us one by one. Oh, flowers, flowers is what we have to give to citizens. Government did not honor because of what they believe, and whereas the nation could always count on your honest opinion. Or still we say the people of the air asked me to deliver this bouquet. Flowers to you, sir, before you go away. where there's no democracy. People are not free to be the best that they can be. Nothing can more retard a nation than disincentive and victimization. No drive to succeed, no honor to serve. When people cannot receive what they deserve, men who held their dignity in their commitments, even when targeted by their own government. Come, let's deliver to them one by one, all patriotic women and men, until all the flowers are done. Oh, 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 flowers, flowers, is what we have to give.
Well, Sherwin, thanks a lot for that. I told you Sherwin could split himself into three people. And Mrs. Leevey, I want to thank you for giving us
So put my
and Dominica and the world the opportunity to have you among us. You give us the opportunity to make this, provide these tributes to you, to recognize your achievements and the things that you've done, the humanitarianism in you, and the outstanding leadership that you've demonstrated. We're still in a little 5 minutes from Fadina's time. I hope she does not mind too much. But I just wanted to give you a final word before we leave here tonight.
Well, I really feel overwhelmed at a loss for words, and I didn't expect all of this. So I want to thank you again, Sheridan, and your team of Q95 for having this session. And it really has given me a great lift. You know, it really has just done something which I will look back on and say, oh boy, that was really great. And I appreciate it. I appreciate all what they have done. And your team, those who are with you, Janice, Simone, Corinne, you know, and I want to, well, tell everyone I wish them success as they continue in their own life. You know, there are many challenges today in this world, but I just want to let them know that I wish them all the best and how much I appreciate what they have contributed to this evening. Okay, so I want to thank all those who sent in tributes. I thank my family. I thank my sisters for their great support over the years. And thank you. I thank all the parents also, I mean, honestly, of the convent high school students who have shown appreciation in one way or another. And I do wish the best for all of them, all the students too.
Well, let's just say thank you on behalf of everyone, all of us here on the panel, all of us who have been listening and all over the globe in Dominica, every nook and cranny of Dominica, everywhere. Sorry that we could not take all the calls. Sorry we could not read all the Facebook comments and all that. But just to let you know on behalf of everyone, we really do appreciate you, Mrs. Dorothy Leevey, and we hope you will be among us to continue to inspire us for a very, very long time to come. So let me say good night. And Godspeed to you.
Mr. G, can I sneak in one more comment? It's from another principal of the convent high school. We must.
Yes, go ahead.
So we have Mrs. Josephine Dublin on the Facebook Live. She's the former principal of Convent High School as well. And she says, a truly commendable program honoring a giant of a woman. Congratulations, Mrs. Leevey.
And thank you so much for that, Dr. Simone. And just to again apologize for Pastor Rodney, who had really a major matter he had to deal with. He could not be with us here tonight. And thank you, Fadina, for allowing us to take a little 5 minutes of your time. So good night, everybody. Good night, Anita. Good night.
Good night, and thank you so much,
Yes.
Sheridan.
Thank you. Thank everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good
night.
Thanks a lot, Sherwin,
Thank
and all of you all are listening at home and abroad. Thank you ever so much,
Thank you.
everybody. And good night to all.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Okay, good night. Okay, thank
Over
you.
to you, Sherwin.
God bless. Have a
Okay.